Hello everyone. In today's video game review, I'm gonna be doing is Amerzone, also known as Amerzone, the Explorer's Legacy, is a first-person fantasy graphic adventure game published by Microdoids. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name, and designed by Benoit Sokel, Sokel, who is based on of his 1986 Inspector Canador comic. Amerzone was originally released for the Microsoft Windows, the classic Mac OS, and PlayStation in 1999, and it was re-released for the ISO and Android in 2014 by Anomad Inactive, whom had brought out the Microdroids in 2009. An upcoming remake is scheduled for release in this year, 2025. Like the comic, the game tells the story of a French explorer who goes on an expedition to the mysterious South American country of Amerzone. There he discovered many fantastical animals, including species of magical white birds who required human intervention for their survival. These become threatened when a friend of Alexander turns Amerzone into a brutal dictatorship, and Alexander's endeavors to rescue the endangered species. The game adds a journalist as the player character who continues the quest as the man near death. Amerzone received generally positive reputation. It was praised for its atmosphere and visuals, with critics claiming that it lent to the poetic and dreamlike quality, while criticisms targeted the sound, controls, and difficulty. It was a great commercial success, with over 1 million copies sold in its original release. The game's setting became the foundation of Sokel's Siberia series and is the namesake for the video game development company he co-founded, White Birds Productions. Amerzone plays like a typical first-person point-and-click adventure game. The player flips between panoramic screens, which can be panned around the view of the game world. Certain elements can be interacted with clicking on them. To progress the game, the player must solve puzzles, which may involve talking to people or using items collected throughout the game. Some items are not required for puzzle solving, but instead served to flash out the game's plot. This is per- this is purpose of the Explorer's Journal and the letters. The game has resources management completed in a hydrofloat. The player must constantly be on the lookout for fuel and floppy disks required to keep the vehicle running. The game's mobile port modified some gameplay elements. An operable hint system was added to the getting struggling to get struggling players back on track, and certain puzzles were redesigned in the attempt to limit tireless back and forth travel between locations. Since the iOS device used touchscreens for input, the controls were redesigned objects and highlighted with clickable icons, and the camera can be controlled by tilting the device. Before entering the gaming industry, Benat Sakal drew a comic book like Canaradole, which he colorized on a personal computer with the event of CD ROMS, which could store hundreds of times more data than the floppy disks. Sokel was inspired in 1995 to create a multimedia CD-ROM containing 2D and 3D art, which would add up to the cohesive universe. His comic publisher, Casterman, approved the idea, and after the successful demonstration, Sokal began to work on a project with software developer Gregory. Casterman's Intel version was of a cheap, small-scale product with very limited production run. They eventually realized that such niche's product would not sell and decided to do something more ambitious. It began planning a full-fledged video game, which Sokal decided to base on his comic book, Amerzone. It would be made up on a pre-enhanced screens linked together using Phoenix VR engine. Sokal held complete creative control over the product. During all the design worked himself, he believed that working alone would foster creativity, whereas collaboration would result in a burnout in standard commercial product. He did hire fellow comic book artist Bonat and Peters to assist with writing, but he soon left the project. Sokal wanted to keep the game accessible to inexperienced players. This meant avoiding sudden difficulty spikes, which could leave a player stuck point of no return scenarios, in which a player is stuck because they missed an item, and failure states that in which the player is killed. He admitted to thinking the game may have been too simple as a result and promised that if they were to make a sequel, I think it would be more complex, especially toward the end. So Cal wrote the game much as he typically wrote comics, first writing the liner's story, then rendering it frame by frame as a storyboard. His guiding principle was to make the kind of adventure that you no longer get these days. An adventure out of the early 20th century. The challenge for Sakal was making this adventure inactive in regard that he found that it puts the very valuable he credited missed as his inspiration to make the game, and also said to Rainer Hazel Herzog film. He is quoted especially as saying, "The Mist is really the game that made me want to make Amerzone." The team began producing artwork in 1996 using Lightwave 3D for character and object models and Bryce 3D for environments. Modeling characters at Sokal's desired quality level was time consuming, so the cast of characters was kept small. Being unfamiliar with 3D graphics, Sokal had to learn on the fly by studying the software documentation and getting help from the more technologically proficient. The latter's skill were applied to the game's more complex visual effects, such as dust particles being buffeted about. Sokal eventually realized the project was too ambitious for the two-man team and hired I'm sorry for mispronouncing the name. So Perfect Calm graduates to help with the graphics. From 1996 onwards, in 1999, one of their workers left to pursue a career at Lightwave in the United States. And Socal called on Belgian company Grid Animation to produce cutscenes and do further graphic work. The experience made Socal overcome his misgivings about working collaborativity. In an interview with the JATV, he was quoted as saying, "I recall that for the first chapter of Amerzone, I modeled everything because I wanted to be on top, but it was impossible, of course. So little by little, people made their way into the team, and started modeling, and I told myself it would make me sick, but in a way, it was revolution in mind. He ended up highly satisfied with the output of his collaborators. Sokal recalls that the game's development was troubled at many points. In the year 1997, Casterman had fallen on hard times and called upon the publisher to help with financing. The Microfold themselves went bankrupt, and the project was saved when Microsoft brought them out and agreed on fund the game. Total budget was 5 million francs, much higher than Sokal's Intel sub million francs. I'm sorry for mispronouncing the name. Again, I apologize. Estimated he would go to describe the game's completion as a miracle. Amerzone underwent several changes in direction, as some design ideas proved impractical or unappealing. Sokal originally wanted a strictly 2D art style, but was disappointed in the result. The team considered using live actors keyed into the computer backgrounds instead of time consuming 3D character modeling. But found that the com- complace- composition, sorry, constipating, compositing of real and fake elements jarring concurrently. The man and the publisher pushed for a highly inactive product, whereas Sokal had initially conversed of the game as a more passive experience. A day to night progression was scrapped, and it was requirement to feed the hydrant the journalist, since this would have created frustrating failure states. Later development. The Edelman Interactive started working on iOS ports of the game in November 2010. The game was released on June 7th, 2011. The Touchridge Games, a developer of adventure game for the mobile device, was chosen to make port. Soon they shared office space with Edelman and so-called intercommunicated efficiency. Touchridge co-founder said that the greatest hurdle lay in parsing all of the old development data, which had been organized properly. The port featured greatly improved in-game visuals and cutscene video quality, and a new playable area, the top of the lighthouse. Bonetsikal was eager to see the game re-release for new players to enjoy and collaborated with the Tudrigage team. Amerzone was released in France on 4 CD for the Windows on March 19th, 1999. Mac OS and the PlayStation ports followed September and December of that year. December also saw DVD ROM re-release of the game in which the cutscenes were in an MPEG-2 format instead of Smacker video. The DVD-ROM version saw further re-releases, some of them by Mindscape, some of them as bargaining priced pack-ins with other adventure titles. The official strategy guide, Amerzone Strategy and Secrets, was released in June 1999. In addition to the walkthrough of the game, it contains the guide to the Amerzone universe. In an interview with Sokel and some behind-the-scenes information, another book was put out by Casterman in November of that same year. It compiles the art from the game and also some concept art that didn't make it into the final product. With the text explanation of images, most of which are from in the game Expedition Journal. In January 2014, the Android port of the game was released. It is identical to the iOS release. Amerzone won the Pixel INA prize for the game at 1989 Enigma Festival, and for its legacy. The game has been cited as one of the finest examples of French computer adventure games. In 2023, Bonetsikal would borrow the logo and the name of his new company, White Bird Productions, from the game. Amerzone is occasionally referred in his later games, most notably the Siberia series. Amerzone is collected with the first two Siberia installments as the Siberia's Collection, which was released in October of 2009. A remake of the original game is currently in development for the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and the PC is scheduled to be released in 2025 this year. So now with that done, let's get started on creatures that appeared in a game. Oh, and there are some scenes that I can't even read cursive words or French. So, anyways, animals that appear in the game. These are butterflies. And that's it for every animal in the game. And I have never played this game, or I didn't even know it. Well, I came across a video recently of Amerzone, so I didn't even know if it. I didn't even know it existed. Well, in my time, I played video games of dinosaur games and GTA and racing games. I never even paid attention to it. Well, anyways, like and subscribe, and see you later, guys.